So my name is Veronica Vostenak. I am the Sustainability Analyst for the City of Half Moon Bay. I will be your main contact regarding this ordinance for the city. And I really would like to be a resource, and I want to help with, get through this change and have it go smoothly. So if there's any sort of questions that you have, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'll have my contact information available at the very end of the presentation, and it's also available on the website. So please feel free to reach out. Also from the city, I have Jennifer Chong, our Public Works Program Manager. I'm not going to make her introduce herself, although you may have seen her in the very beginning helping us out figure out the videos. She will be in the background, so if you're having any technical difficulties or want to speak, she's the one that will be able to unmute you so that you can do so. Next, I have Ensu Lim from the County of San Mateo Office of Sustainability. Ensu and her team did a lot of the heavy lifting with this ordinance, so we really appreciate all of the work that they did, and she's here on hand in case we have any questions that I can't answer since her team did a lot of the work. So I think Ensu, you want to say a couple words?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. Veronica, Jennifer, thank you so much for letting me participate in this study session. I'm very excited to see that Half Moon Bay is being progressive and being very interested in seeing, exploring this disposable foodware ordinance for the city and the community. So I'm very excited. I'm trying to be as supportive as possible to both Veronica and Jennifer to make this as smooth as possible for both of them, as well as the entire city as a whole. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ensu. And then we also have Republic Services here. So we have Monica DiVincenzi and Janine Minix. The Republic Services can be a really great resource for businesses as well. So I just wanted to make sure that at the very least, you know their names, and they have they're here in case we have any questions that go on about how the solid waste service kind of interacts with this ordinance. So I think, Monica, you have a couple of things that you wanted to say too.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thanks again to the city for hosting this and including us as a part of it. We're basically here as a resource for the city and the county and businesses to assist you with not only this ordinance, but any of your garbage recycling and compost needs for the businesses throughout the city of Half Moon Bay, those that are reopening or have opened. In addition to these, there's a lot of state mandates that relate to what you need to be doing with your materials. So we're just, consider us your resource. Anytime you have any questions, Janine is our recycling coordinator that works directly with the businesses and multifamilies in Half Moon Bay, but we are here to just support you in any way that we can.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. And I guess I think you can put your contact information in the chat. So if you do want to provide it to the people, to the attendees today, I think that you can do that, give people a way to contact you. Great. So with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. So I just want to frame the conversation, what is happening. So today we're giving some more information and giving you all a summary introducing Half Moon Bay's proposed disposable foodware ordinance, which is modeled on the San Mateo County ordinance. San Mateo County had adopted an ordinance very similar to what we're looking to, or what we've modeled our ordinance on back in February. And that currently is the case for the unincorporated areas. So our coastside friends, El Granada, Montera, Moss Beach, they are all going to be using this ordinance. The county has reached out to the cities to try to get us all on the same page if this is within our goals. This ordinance does fit along the lines of our Half Moon Bay's goals for environmental sustainability and reducing single-use plastics in the city. And we feel as though a unified front with other cities in the county is the most effective way to do that. So I'm here today to give a little summary of what it is that we're looking to do, and also to get your questions and feedback from both impacted businesses or community members, because this will be something that may impact you in some way, and we want to make sure that we can take your questions and your comments into consideration while continuing to develop for Half Moon Bay. So a little bit of background, a pretty large percentage of litter and waste that exists in the area and in the world today does revolve around food packaging. So Clean Water Action did a litter survey back in 2011 in the Bay Area, and they found that 67% of the street litter in the area was food and beverage packaging. So that is a huge percentage of the waste that is generated today. And we've really transitioned to a throwaway culture over the past couple decades, where we use some of these items for 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time, and then throw it away or discard it. And it kind of gets us thinking, with plastic as being so cheap and so available, that is one of the materials that is used very frequently. And is that convenience worth it? Is it worth it for those items to be used for 10 minutes and then stick around on our earth for hundreds of years? There's also a lot of really big health and environmental concerns surrounding plastic. Plastic, when it breaks down, it releases harmful chemicals into the environment, and instead of breaking down into more natural pieces, it just breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics. And these microplastics have been shown to be in our air, in our water, in our food. So we really are ingesting these plastics on a day-to-day basis. It also affects our marine and our wildlife. I know the plastic foodware finds its way on our beaches and in our waterways really often, especially now with COVID. So with this ordinance, we see a really big opportunity to mitigate some of this waste and get us to think a little bit differently about the items that we use. So as far as goals for this ordinance, we're looking to do 3 things. One is to eliminate disposable foodware that's not reusable or compostable. So you can see on the right, this is kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about foodware. We're talking about cups, plates, clamshells, stir sticks, all of that you use when you're getting takeout or eating at a restaurant or a cafe. We're looking to switch this from items that would be thrown away to items that are either reusable or compostable. We're looking to improve the health and safety of our Half Moon Bay community members. So as I mentioned, we're trying with those microplastics, and there's some harmful chemicals in plastics. So by eliminating plastics from this, we're eliminating some of the exposure to those chemicals. And we're also looking to reduce the unnecessary distribution of disposable foodware items and accessories. I think a lot of times, again, out of convenience or just to make things easier, a lot of times you receive a lot of items that you may not use and are ultimately wasted. So we're looking to mitigate some of that and get less of that in the world to begin with. So probably one of the most important questions is who will be impacted. So this ordinance will, people who have food facilities that serve prepared food intended to be consumed by the public are those that will have to comply with this ordinance. So if you're thinking about restaurants, cafes, food trucks, farmers markets, all of those, a really easy way to figure out whether or not you will need to comply with this ordinance is to consider if you get a health permit from the county. If you have an environmental health permit to do business, you will need to comply with this ordinance. So if there's any questions about whether or not your business will be impacted, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you figure out if this is something that you will need to consider going forward. All right, so getting a little bit more into the meat of it, we're going to talk about which materials are not allowed under the ordinance. So this ordinance will be replacing the styrofoam ban that the city adopted in 2011. And while this will be replacing it, styrofoam will continue to be banned. So as it has been banned in the past, that will continue. We are looking to add plastic to this, and when we're talking about plastic, we're talking about both petroleum-based plastics and compostable plastics. So items that will not be allowed under this ordinance are items that are posted on this slide here on your screen. We have, again, clamshells, utensils, plates, cups. Again, if you have any questions, you can refer. We have the draft ordinance on our website, and I'm also happy to help you work through whether or not the items that you have will be not allowed under this ordinance. You may be thinking, why not compostable plastics? If we're looking to add compostable, why not include compostable plastics? And the reality is that these items only break down, if they're truly compostable plastics, they only break down in very specific scenarios. They only break down in industrial composting facilities if they make it there, and if they don't and they end up in our streets and our waterways, they break down into those smaller and smaller pieces, just like plastics do. They break down into microplastics. They really look and feel like traditional plastics. So when you have a consumer that has that item and they're looking to discard that item, they're not always sure where it goes. There's inconsistencies in labeling. There's a lot of greenwashing out there. So we find that a lot of times people put these compostable plastics in the recycling bin or the garbage, or they put their compostable plastic in the recycling bin instead of the compost, and that just contaminates the waste streams that we have and ultimately affects the amount of material that's able to be recycled or composted. So we're looking to eliminate a good amount of that confusion by eliminating compostable plastics from this ordinance. As far as acceptable items, we are really encouraging businesses to use reusables. Reusables are not required under this ordinance, but we believe that that is the direction we would like to go moving forward, especially for dine-in only. I know that the barrier to purchase these items in the first place can be an issue, so I'm happy to work through if somebody is interested in reusables but aren't sure how that might work for you. We can take a look at it. There's also a lot of really great case studies out there, including some from Rethink Disposables, where restaurants like a taqueria will replace their disposable forks and salsa cups to reusables for dine-in and end up saving thousands of dollars and thousands of pounds of trash a year. I know that this isn't a practical solution for everything and for all scenarios, so there are some disposable items that are allowed under the ordinance. These items will be fiber-based compostable items, similar to what you can see on the screen here. So you can see these items look and feel different. They're made out of more natural materials like paper, wood, sugar cane, items like that. The bigger items will need to be BPI certified. So when I talk about the bigger items, I'm talking about plates, clamshells, cups, bowls. Those items need to be certified. You can see there is, in the middle of the screen here, there's a little emblem from the Biodegradable Products Institute. This lets people know that these items are likely to degrade in an industrial composting facility and that they have trace amounts of fluorinated chemicals. So those are some of those chemicals related to, that have been linked to obesity, various cancers, and other health concerns. So this certification allows customers to feel confident that these items will be composted and have trace amounts or no amounts of these fluorinated chemicals. Before businesses are required to comply with this ordinance, there will be a list of acceptable products available from the county. So we will make sure that this list is sent out and also available on our website and in City Hall as well. So we want to make this easy for businesses. We want you to be able to have resources to be able to make this switch without too much effort. There is another element to this ordinance in regards to the distribution of foodware accessories. So foodware accessories are some of those smaller items like utensils, condiment packets, straws, things like that that are accessories to what you would be eating out of or receiving your food in. These items do not need to be BPI certified, but they should be compostable, fiber-based if that item exists in that way. So there is some limit to the distribution methods. The county requires that these items be distributed in only 3 ways. 1, by request of the customer, 2, upon customer acceptance, and 3rd, in self-service kiosks. When I did a study session with the City Council earlier this year, City Council was looking to reduce the amount of distribution even further to just the request of the customer. So it is likely that the Half Moon Bay Ordinance will have slightly more restricted distribution methods. And the reasoning behind that is we want people to only receive these items if they truly want them. And we believe by them requesting it, we will be reducing a lot of unnecessary waste that's been giving automatically, or people just say yes, they want it, or oh, maybe just in case, I'll take this fork. So again, we really want to reduce the distribution and reduce the amount of waste that exists out there in the first place. So items that are not affected by this ordinance, I wanted to point a couple out just to eliminate any confusion. Aluminum will still be allowed. Aluminum in general is fairly recyclable. So aluminum items like foil and bowls and catering dishes will still be allowed under this ordinance. And also notably, removable cup lids are not considered to be a foodware accessory for the purpose of this ordinance. So the removable cup lids will allow to, if you are able to use them now, you're able to use them after this ordinance is adopted. As far as some other exemptions, so I talked about businesses that have prepared food will need to comply with this ordinance. And I want to be clear that if you have prepackaged food, so food that may be made on site and packaged, and so that people can kind of grab and go. If you think about at the grocery store, sometimes they have pre-made salads or pre-made sandwiches in containers. Those items are not regulated under this ordinance. So if it's prepackaged food, that is not handled under this ordinance. There's also, of course, allowances for medical accommodations. So if there's a medical need for a particular item, that will continue to still be allowed. One of the more common considerations for this medical accommodation is plastic straws. So businesses can keep a small stock of plastic straws on hand to give to customers that request it for medical reasons. And last, there is an exemption process for when no feasible alternative exists for a particular item. So if there are specialty items or items that just don't make sense in a compostable container, those items may still be allowed, but there is an exemption process. That exemption process is still a little bit in the works, but I'm happy to talk through any questions you have around specific items if that is of concern. And last, and arguably most important, is the timeline. So right now we're in the early stages. We're doing outreach to businesses and community members to get an idea of how everybody's feeling about the ordinance and get their questions and their concerns settled before we move it a little bit further. So right now we're doing this outreach, and we'll be accepting comments through mid-August. And that will be in preparation for the first reading of the ordinance, which we expect to be at our September 15th meeting. So at that meeting, we'll be presenting the ordinance to the council for the first time with some edits. This is another opportunity for businesses or community members if you would like to address the council directly on this ordinance. This meeting is an appropriate way to do that. I'm happy if you, I'm going to be sending out a letter to businesses that we believe will be impacted by this ordinance, letting them know once this item has been scheduled. But if you would like me to send you an email once we have the agenda and the staff report to go along with this ordinance in September and a definitive date of when it will be heard, please feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to send that information to you when it's available. If all goes well, we expect our second reading of the ordinance and ultimate adoption of the ordinance to happen in October, at our October 6th meeting, which would be the meeting following the first reading. It's important to note that once this ordinance is adopted, there's 365 days between the adoption date and the enforcement date. So this 365 days gives businesses an opportunity to run through their stock that they currently have of items that may not be compliant with the ordinance, but also for the county and the city to do some additional education and outreach. There will need to be some education and outreach for businesses, but also for patrons of those businesses so they understand some of the elements of this ordinance and what is required. So with that, if we adopt the ordinance on our October 6th meeting in 2020, enforcement would begin in October of 2021. So that is the details that I have about this ordinance. I hope that was helpful. I hope you get a better idea of what the ordinance, of the who, what, when, where, why of the ordinance. And of course, if there's any questions at any point, whether it be now or later down the line, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help if I can, or point you to somebody who may be able to be more helpful. And again, I would like to receive any email or phone comments to be incorporated into the ordinance draft by August 14th of this year. So that concludes my portion of this presentation, and I'm not sure if there were any questions that came up during the presentation, but if you have any questions or comments that you would like to make now, please feel free to raise your hand, which I believe should be, there should be a raise your hand option, or if you hover over your name, you should have that ability and someone can unmute you, or you can put your questions in the chat. Either will work.
And Veronica, we did have a question come in while you were presenting. So Alejandra asked for clarification when you said that El Granada and Moss Beach will also be adopting H&B's ordinance.
El Granada and Moss Beach, that's in the unincorporated area. So that is under the jurisdiction of San Mateo County. So the ordinance that the county adopted in February of this year, that will be the ordinance that El Granada, Moss Beach, and the other unincorporated areas of the county, but that's the ordinance that they will follow.
She says thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Alejandra. Cool.
So I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. And again, if anyone wants to either type a question in the Q&A or the chat at the bottom of your screen, you're welcome to do that. If you would like to verbally ask a question, you can go ahead and in the participant, when you click the participants icon at the bottom of your screen, it should bring up a list of all the participants, and next to your name, it should give you the option to raise your hand. And if you go ahead and do that and I see your hand raised, I can unmute you so you can ask your question verbally. Shell's asking if the harbor is considered Half Moon Bay.
So generally, no. And Jennifer, I think you might be a little bit more familiar with the exact jurisdiction than I am, but the harbor generally is not considered Half Moon Bay. I know that Sam's Chowder House and the Beach House Hotel are considered to be Half Moon Bay, but generally anything in the harbor or Miramar is not. And then, so it's, I believe the line is Murata Road. And then there's kind of like a skinny area that the city has jurisdiction over on the beach. And then we also include Sam's and the Beach House. So Jennifer, do I have that right?
That sounds about right to me, but I figure since NSU's on the line, NSU, do you?
Oh yeah.
Does that sound about right to you as well?
So I think she's talking about Princeton Harbor.
Pillar Point, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the map right now, and it looks like, based on Google Map, Pillar Point Harbor falls within unincorporated San Mateo County territory.
And it looks like Crystalline also says that it's considered unincorporated. So technically, they've already passed an ordinance, or the county has passed an ordinance that already addresses the harbor.
Great, these are good questions.
Thanks for the collaborative answering, everyone.
Yeah.
So Danielle asked the question, do any of you know of any company who provides reusables to businesses in our area, such as GoBox in San Francisco?
So as far as I know, and I think Shell and Alejandra, I know that they're tracking this as well, and we have had a lot of conversations about this. But as far as I know, there's not currently any services like that service the coast side. But I think there is a lot of interest. I know I've talked to Cup Club and Dispatch Goods, and while they're interested in expanding and they're interested in providing some of these services, they're not currently available. So if you are interested in that, that would be helpful in our conversations. And I'm also happy to connect you with some of those people in those companies that I have had conversations with.
Great. And a follow-up to Shell's earlier question, and Sue, I think this one is probably best directed to you. She's saying that OPL, Brew Company, etc., are unincorporated and that they're not following the ordinance right now. And Sue, do you want to talk a little bit about your grace period and when your enforcement period is currently slated to begin?
Sure, that's a great question. So similar to what Veronica said, there is a 365-day grace period from the effective date of the ordinance and the enforcement date. So technically, we are a few months into this 365-day grace period. So for unincorporated San Mateo County, the enforcement is going to start at the end of March of next year. So between now and March, we are going to be, we're currently in the process of acquiring a consultant that's going to be helping us, the county, with the education and outreach to all the food facilities in the community. And so technically, food facilities right now do not have to comply with the ordinance, although we do encourage early adopters for sure. So yes, you will see food facilities like restaurants within unincorporated parts of the county still not complying right now, and technically that is okay. But starting end of March of next year, they will need to start complying.
Great, thanks, Sue. Crystalline had a question about whether or not the city has reached out to Hassett Hardware because they are always looking to provide stuff for businesses. And I'm assuming, Crystalline, you're thinking reusable material? Yes.
Yeah, that is not something that we have done, but that's a great idea. I'm happy to have those conversations with them and get a good idea of what's allowed so that they can include it in their store. That would be great.
Great. Thank you. And then Danielle had another comment. She's saying that they are hesitant to bring back reusable cups and mugs in their cafe area, which is going to be fully open back up today because of COVID-19. So, and Sue, what are some of the county's guidelines around bringing reusable mugs back?
So that is, I have to be honest, that goes into the realm of our Environmental Health Services Department, and it falls outside the purview of the Office of Sustainability. So I don't want to provide any misinformation. So I'd be happy to reach out to my colleagues in environmental health and get clarification on when folks can start bringing reusable mugs to different cafes and other food facilities. So I'd be happy to follow up with whoever asked that question.
Great. And then so Danielle just dropped her email into the chat box, and Sue, so you can either pull it from there, or we can give it to you after this. Shell's mentioning that there's been a ton of research saying that reusables are safe. So, Shell, if you want to send that our way, we can work with the county to try to get that publicized out to the community, promoted on our website, where Veronica mentioned this earlier, this video is being recorded, so we plan to post it up on our website for those that were not able to attend. So if you know someone, or if you know other businesses that might be affected by this ordinance or just have interest in it, we'll be sending a link out to the website where all of this, the recording of this video will be available for everyone. And thank you, Shell. I see your response. So I don't see any other questions coming in. I don't think that I've missed anything, but if I have, please let me know.
Give it a couple minutes in case anybody's typing.
Sure.
But yeah, thank you everybody again for attending today. I really appreciate your time and all of your questions and comments. We've had a lot of good conversation.
Yep. I don't see anything else coming through either the chat or the Q&A, and I don't see any hands raised. So I think we're good to go, Veronica.
All right. Well, that was much shorter than I had scheduled, which is great. And as I said earlier, I have all of my contact information available here or on the website. So if there's any questions that come up later on, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks, Alondra. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good
great day. Veronica, I don't think I can stop the recording. I think you have to do that.